Most people move from account management into sales. Amanda Edington did the opposite. She was a successful account executive who realized that she got more energy and better results by solving problems for existing customers rather than chasing new logos. And today she leads account management at Payscale, where she and her team drive customer growth by being fixers, not sellers. In today's episode, Amanda and I talk about why expansion has to feel like a service and not like a sale, what elation looks like in B2B and how her team earns it, why retention always comes first, and how it creates the foundation for repeat business, referrals, and revenue. This is a practitioner episode. It's full of lessons about what's working and what isn't in modern account management. Let's jump into my conversation with Amanda Edington. If you're an account manager, you already know this. You're the one keeping the business running. You own the client relationships, drive the revenue, and solve the tough problems for your customers. But here's the challenge. Most companies don't give account managers the training or recognition they deserve. That's what you'll get here on the Account Management Secrets podcast. I'm Raymond, and after working with thousands of account managers, I know what separates the best from the rest. In this show, we cover exactly what you need to succeed: handling tough client conversations, driving renewals and upsells with confidence, and proving your value every single day. There's no fluff, no outdated sales tactics, just real practical strategies you can use right now to grow your accounts and build a successful career. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, hit subscribe and let's get into it. Hey, Amanda, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I love talking to people who are out there building account management teams, doing cool things with their customers. And I'd love to just kick off to understand, what does it mean to be a VP of account management today at Payscale? Like, what's your definition of it? What's the remit? Everyone's got a different version of what account management means. So what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I've had a little bit of a unique journey to this role. And that started, I joined Payscale about 5 years ago as an individual contributor on the new business side of the house as an account executive. And when our CEO joined, he asked what I wanted to do long-term. What was my vision of what Payscale, my career at Payscale looked like? And I expressed the desire to build an account management team. We did not have a well-defined account management team at the time. We had a small group of mid-market account managers at the time that only did upsell. There was not any retention responsibility, and it was just for this small segment. Primarily because of the volume of accounts in that space, it was a way to kind of help the new business AEs, have increased bandwidth in their exposure to our clients. Our CEO said if I did not let him down, he'd build the thing around me. And so I didn't, and he did. And we have been on this journey of where we built a team of 6 in the US, an additional 6 folks. And then that was the director role where I was managing individual contributors that were just doing expansion only within the current client base. Payscale has about 8,500 customers globally. So we have a big pool to go into with not a lot of penetration from an expansion perspective. We didn't have a huge upsell motion. It had grown over the years, but it wasn't where it could be. And so when we started, we were solely looking to grow revenue within the client base, and it exploded. It was a rocket ship. Probably a mix of it hadn't been done a ton, and also Payscale has a lot to offer that can keep folks with us long-term and change with them as their needs evolve. And it's still a really strong market for an account management team. From there, we grew again. We grew by another 6. And so at that point, I needed leaders. And then we expanded the team into Manila. And then we had 12 over there. So now we have 12 in Manila with a leader over that team. And then 3 leaders now with an acquisition of data people stateside. And about 15 onshore AMs as well, and always looking to grow where appropriate and when appropriate. But the journey to VP sort of was, okay, we started as expansion, but then account management also really has the ability to be responsible for all things commercial within the client base so that our CSM team can really focus on adoption and engagement and optimization of tools to support that increased retention, right? So for me, what it means is driving responsible commercial activity within a client base that has an appetite to grow, but that also needs to maintain trust with us as a vendor in a somewhat sensitive space as it relates to compensation and pay transparency, things that really need to be built on a foundation of trust.
So I don't hear that one very often of people going from sales into account management. I hear customer success going into account management, or I sometimes hear account managers going into sales, but very rarely from an AE into an account manager role. Yeah. What motivated you to do that?
Yeah, so I was way back in 2006. I was a account executive for Paychex in their small business division. And I was always looking for a way to do my job better, smarter, and faster. And I found this pocket where I could get referrals and bulk of business through CPA firms, which was something I had heard about at Paychex. But when I found it for myself to be true, I was like, this is way easier than cold calling people. All I have to do is do thought leadership for these CPA firms, come do lunch and learns, teach them things that they may not know about, give them valuable nuggets of information, and treat their customers well. And they just give me like all their business. And it wasn't always that easy, but that was the result. And so when I left Paychex after 7 years of being there, I was recruited by old Paychex executives to go to a startup HRIS company, and they needed a leader of the account management team that was also going to be a player. So I did that, and that was what got it started. And they had known about my success within the CPA community in the Indianapolis market, and it was something I spoke about for Paychex at the corporate level once it really took off. And it was just a kind of a natural fit, and I loved it. But then I came back to being an AE at Payscale. After doing that for several years, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go back into it, and found myself upselling current customers as an AE, and was like, this is what I want to do. So that's the journey. Okay,
so you have a decent sized team. You are responsible for expansion and retention today. So did that shifted also? And
that
then
did.
When you say it was a rocket ship, what did you start doing that you weren't previously doing? So you were able to grow revenue from the existing customer base by more than expected. What was happening there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a really well-defined prospecting strategy that was able to align our industry verticals, our segments, and kind of macroeconomic conditions that are kind of mandating employers to pay attention to things that Payscale can protect them against, and also can put them into a positive light from a branding perspective. We think about things like, I mentioned pay transparency earlier, the EU pay transparency directive, as well as things like pay equity, appropriate kind of bonus allocation through compensation planning. So there are these macro topics that are hot right now, particularly in an employee-driven market, which it was when we started this, that we were able to just promote through really thoughtful prospecting within the client base, driving that interest and kind of making it very relevant for the buyers.
Okay, got it. Now, are you still finding that there's a roughly 70-30 split between the revenue that goes to account managers and the revenue that comes from new business sale every year? I mean, that's the sort of the typical breakdown. What I've seen in talking to people both on this podcast and within the AMplify community is that's actually grown a little bit. So it's probably more like 75% from the existing base. Do you have that rough dynamic?
Yeah, I would say it's a little, that's accurate. I would say 75 is accurate from within the client base versus what comes in from the new business side. Yes.
Pretty extraordinary. And I'd love to hear how you think about the investments here. But when I hear that 3/4 of revenue comes from existing clients versus new clients, and then I look at how people spend money on acquisition and marketing and the top of funnel stuff versus post sales, I'm always blown away at how little they spend on post sales. So what's your view on that? Like, where are you investing in the post sales team?
Yeah, we are very lucky to have an ELT that views post sales as valuable from, a revenue generation perspective as the new business. And I shouldn't say values, I'm sure all ELTs do, but our team invests heavily in the post sales organization. So we have a customer strategy side of our post sales org. Our CCO, Kate Peter, came from Gainsight. So there is and Harvard Business Publishing. So there is a massive kind of, she has a love and a passion for the post sales org that is kind of unmatched. It's unlike anything I've seen. And she has been able to kind of spread that throughout our org. And what that means is we have our own little pocket of marketing. We have our own CDR team that is responsible for helping drive demand gen from within the client base. We have, all of these, our services and support and client advocacy team are all tied to, GRR and revenue goals. So we work as a team, and we have a big team and big investments in driving the post sales org. And I think that's because we know that the cost of acquisition of a new customer is about 7 times, sometimes 8 times that of retaining an existing customer. So we kind of operate under, that assumption, and the investments are sort of tailored to that, that equation, right? So we're going to make sure we're investing in what's with us today, just as much as we would, if not more so than what comes off the street.
You've got a very clear expansion focus within your team, and this is something that you're obviously came from historically, and then continues to be a major push for you. I heard you say that expansion is a service to the customers. Now, This is not a natural thing for a lot of account managers to say. I see a lot of account managers sort of pull back when it comes to expansion. In fact, I was on the phone earlier today with an AMplify member, and she was saying that she still feels hesitant to get out there and do upsells and expansion. She feels like it's too salesy. And so there is a little bit of this tension out there. There's this long running debate, and we don't know how much we'd be focusing on acquisition of, or pardon me, not acquisition, but like selling, if you will, to the customers versus providing value and being of service. You've actually said that they're the same thing, right? So the expansion is the service, but I want to make sure that I'm not putting words in your mouth, that you're explaining that. So tell us exactly what you mean, and did I get that right?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I have a couple of angles to take this from. One is, GRR is the North Star. You can't expand what you don't retain. So I believe that wholeheartedly. We have to have the client base stay with us in order to expand them. But then it's kind of this cyclical thought process, because you can't retain what you don't appropriately service. And if I assume that you, Alex, came to me in 2016 with a set of priorities, and those are the exact same in 2025, and I approach your renewal or the next conversation we have with the assumption that your priorities and needs are the same, kind of shame on me. That's not really appropriately managing your account. What I should be doing, or what I believe to be best practice and how I coach my team and my leaders, is every one of these conversations is an opportunity for you to say, how has your business changed? When you partnered with Payscale initially, these were the goals. What are the goals today? And if what we've got you contracted for, the contract is just the vehicle for what we're allowed to do to support you. So if what you're contracted for does not match what you need, I'm not serving you the right way. So that's the way that I look at it. And I think where I have the benefit that some folks don't is that our account management team started with expansion and then assumed commercial responsibility over retention. So they've got that growth mindset that I think sometimes, to your point, comes secondary in a lot of post-sales organizations. So we sort of started with expansion, and then added on the retention. And now we understand how important the retention is to do that expansion piece well and to do it repeatedly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the foundation for the compounding is retaining. So the retention's got to be there because that's how we continue to grow. And then for the expansion piece, I like the way you phrase it about assuming, right? You don't want to be assuming where the customer is today. I think as account managers, our assumptions are killing so much potential for us because we have all these thoughts in our heads about where the customer was, what they're doing. We're not testing them very much. So we're not actually going out there to say, here's what I think. Is this true? We're simply using it as this is fact, right? And that means that we're turning people off, right? We're missing out on opportunities. We're not seeing risks that are sometimes right in front of our faces. And so that's a big issue. That being said, there's a whole discipline to customer discovery and actually learning how to ask those questions and approach people and have meaningful conversations and not do it in a way that customer feels like you're interrogating them and stuff like that. What is your process? Like, walk us through how, if I'm on your team, how I'm getting coached and trained on doing that level of discovery to test my assumptions.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it is something that we talk about a lot. So I think it's natural for people to gravitate towards questions when they are conducting discovery. And what I coach my leaders to coach their people, and what I coach the team directly when given the opportunity, is I have found it to be more effective to say statements that invite people to speak, right? So you've been with us since 2016. Tell me what things look like today. How is it different from 2016? And then just stop and let them tell you. So if the curiosity is real and the curiosity comes from a place where you are genuinely wondering and genuinely wanting to help, then 20 questions don't have to happen. You only need to ask a couple, because as people are speaking, you can pick up on their keywords, on their sentiment, on their tone, and say, hey, can we go back to that for a second? I heard you say XYZ. Typically what that means for our customers is this. Is that true for you? And it's more of a dialogue than a 20 questions. I think where we miss opportunity is where that discovery stops at level one. And really, level one is more applicable on the new business side of the house. You can almost skip level one on the customer side and get right to the good stuff if you do it well. But it's something that we have to coach over and over and over, because it's not natural for people. Most people have been taught to sell by asking very pointed questions, not leading your client to speak to you conversationally.
What is the favorite question that you like to ask? What's the ace up your sleeve when you're doing this kind of discovery?
Yeah, I ask, how can we be a better partner for you?
How can we be a better partner for you?
Mm-hmm.
So you show up, and this could be someone you're meeting for the first time, or it could be someone you've been working with for a while. How can we be a better partner from you? And then, in your experience, then what happens?
So one of two things happens typically, or maybe one of three. So either they answer favorably, and it is, you guys are great, we've been happy for 5 years, status quo. And then I have to get a little more creative to get additional information, where it's the next question is, well, what has changed for you? And I mentioned this when we first started talking. What has changed for you since you chose us initially, right? The second thing that can happen is that opens a can of worms. And there is a, laundry list of things that they want us to be doing better, or that the tool could do better. And I think that's an opportunity to say, sounds like there are some things that we could improve upon. And I want to make sure that we have all of the right people on the call to address the needs that you're kind of outlining here. Am I right that most of the things we need to improve upon are functionality, or is there a partnership component to this too, right? You kind of have to dig into what is the problem. And then the third option is where they say, actually, we want to talk to you about that too. Here's what we're looking at. Here's what we're considering. In full transparency, we're going to bid this renewal this time around. And I want that. That's what I want to hear, right? Because then, or my people to hear, because then you can play the game. Like that's when you start to play the game of, okay, like we have to keep you, we have to earn your business, we have to make sure that we're doing the right things, but you're telling me, you're giving me an opportunity to do that. So I like it because it can put us in a positive place, it can put us in a scary place, and it can put us in a competitive place.
Well, it's an important question that a lot of inexperienced account managers won't go to first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're afraid of the answer. A lot of account managers will make the mistake of thinking, well, if the customer doesn't bring it up, then I'm not going to bring it up either. Therefore, we're going to like it's safer just to sweep all this stuff under the rug. But when you start with a question like, how can we be a better partner, and then especially if they then get into here's some frustration or some issue that they have. Here's the point that I want to make, and I want you to correct me if this is not how you think too. But in that situation, you want the customer to let it all out. Like you want them to tell you everything, because you can't take the next step until you solve whatever's going on right now. Too many people will try to say, okay, I hear all this stuff, but let's talk about the renewal. Okay, I hear all that stuff, but let's talk about expanding to Europe or whatever the thing was before. No, the customer is not interested in any of that until you address whatever's on the table. So you got to let them talk, and you got to make sure everything is out there. So another great thing to do is say, what else? Right? And then they talk and you say, okay, and what else? And really, really kind of like squeeze that orange until you got everything out. Do you agree, disagree?
I 100% agree. Say more. Tell me more about that. What else? These are critical, questions to ask to get to the real root of whatever it is that could be out there within the client sentiment about the partnership. An experience that I had towards the very beginning of us kicking the function off. I was at World at Work, which is an industry, it's our industry's largest conference of the year. And Payscale is a big sponsor every year. And so we were there, and I happened to sit down at a table at lunch. I had no idea who I was sitting next to. And turns out it was one of our largest clients. From a logo perspective, not from an ARR perspective, because they'd been with us so long, they were kind of grandfathered into a pretty sweet deal. But I didn't know who she was, and we just started talking. She was like, "Oh, Payscale, like we're leaving you." And I was like,
Ooh.
"Oh, okay." So let's talk about that. And we ended up having lunch, and she ended up being lovely, but very open and transparent, and had some really concrete reasons why she was unhappy. So I committed to going on site to their org, and we committed a half day on site where we brought a solutions consultant, and we brought someone from support, and we mapped out a success plan, and we got them to renew. And then they doubled their renewal. They doubled their contract value, because I was able to kind of say, okay, you have problems, you're dissatisfied. What I want to do is take the opportunity as an account manager to understand why you're dissatisfied, where we can solve for those grievances. And then I'm going to tell you what it takes for us to do that. And I'm going to commit to delivering these results. But if it takes resources, I'm going to be honest about what those Payscale resources will cost. And they were all in. And it's one of my favorite stories, because I think as account managers, we're in a unique position to take dissatisfaction and turn it into retention and expansion. If we're really listening and genuinely thinking about and asking the right questions and uncovering what the customers actually need from us, we can solve their problems and be a better partner and benefit the organizations that we represent, and it helps everybody. So I think that's another value behind genuine curiosity and really good discovery, and just an example of how it can turn things from scary to good kind of on a dime if you're really curious.
Okay, so all right, I'm super interested in this story. Let's make sure that we are unpacking it. You happened across a customer at a conference who happened to be in a talkative mood and told you that they were leaving. My first question is, where was the actual account manager for this account, and why were they not aware of it? But the second question I have is, like, what actually happened after that? Like, literally give us the blow by blow.
Yeah, so we were building the function at the time of this conference. So I had the team of six that I mentioned in our down market segment that didn't really manage the larger logos. And then I had two people that were managing 3,000 logos while we were hiring and building. So they just simply had not gotten to this.
Which by the way, that you can't do that. You cannot
And
manage
we knew
3,000
that.
logos. Yeah.
Right. And we knew that. We were building, we were hiring, we were doing all this. So it was this short period of time. And this account manager, their defense, we were a function for 6 weeks total when this conference took place. So no finger pointing on that component. If it was today, we might be having a different conversation. But truly from there, running and meeting them at the lunch at World at Work, it was an agreement to an on-site. And so I brought together the team that I knew from within the post-sales org all across. As I mentioned earlier, we're a very tight-knit group, though kind of mighty in numbers. Brought together the right team that would be able to support and answer and present solutions to the problems that this group was sharing with us. I don't know those things, and I don't want to pretend to know those things.
It's not your job. It's not the account manager's job to solve that stuff. Yeah.
I never want to be the smartest person in the room because that means I don't have the right people there if I am. So we brought them on site, all that team of us, and spent half a day in a conference room and had their global comp team on Zoom. So we were just kind of surrounded by their team, and they started with airing their grievances, and we moved throughout the day into, okay, how do we fix that? Can we fix that? If we can't, we're not going to say that we can. And if we can, we're going to tell you exactly how we will fix it, how long that will take, who your partner will be in that particular fix, and we'll commit to doing it in X time. Then we came home after that on-site. They were shaking our hands. They said we went from being alarmed by Payscale's client experience to really being encouraged and excited to see where this could go. I think on-sites go a long way. Little plug there. And we came back, put together a proposal for what it would look like, both in a timing and investment perspective, presented it back to the group virtually, outlining, of course, everything we had discussed on the onsite, reiterating the path to partnership and how we were going to improve, and presented what that would cost them. And it did double their fee, their annual fee, and they renewed at that fee, and they're with us today. They just did another expansion.
Okay, so what was the timeline between you meeting her and her saying, we're thinking about leaving, to doubling, and then to redoubling now, or whatever that expansion was?
So the renewal commitment from when we met was 6 months. So we got signatures on renewal 6 months post that initial running into each other at the conference. And then that is 2 years from where we sit today, with less than 2 years. Well, it's a year and a half from where we are today from that for the expansion.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing. I love to hear those kind of numbers. One of the things that comes up in my head when I hear you talking about that, Amanda, is we do a lot of discussion there's a lot of talk about the heroic acts that account managers perform, and as opposed to having a structured, systematic approach to things. A lot of account managers are just, naturally creative, talented, problem solving, say yes type of people. They love to roll up their sleeves and go get stuff done. What you're describing there is basically a heroic act, right? You randomly ran into this person. You said, I'm going to solve this problem. You galvanized support internally. You went out there and met them. You got it done. And then we had a good ending. What are your thoughts around this kind of nature of account managers to do all these heroic acts? I call it the unsung hero syndrome, right? They're just always unsung heroes, kind of going the extra mile, as opposed to having a methodology and a process and a system, just like sales has, Medic and MedPick and Bant and Sandler and all this sort of stuff. And the account managers are running out there, basically without a net. how do you think about that kind of trade-off right now? How do you think about that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it is true. And I think about it, and I've described our role as not heroic, but more, and heroic acts is totally a great way to describe it, but we're project managers more than we are anything else, right? We are fixers. So when there is a problem, the ability to connect the dots on how to fix that problem, the critical thinking skills necessary to effectively execute on the role are non-negotiable. So the way that I think about it at the senior leader level is I think about it from a recruitment standpoint. I want very competitive people that have had to do really hard things and then keep going. So college athletes, I look for people who have, had to get full ride scholarships or paid their way through school or have a really interesting life story, because I think it takes grit, a different kind of grit than new business sales, maybe, but it takes grit and a commitment to success to successfully navigate an account manager role. And that's where I think that heroic concept comes into play, is the ability for someone to look at a problem, and regardless of how they have to get there, they're going to solve it. So, up, around, over, and through is the thought process and the skill that I need from every one of my team members. And I think for all successful account managers, that is the case.
I like that definition, and made me think about something. When you said it's a different kind of grit than for salespeople. So salespeople are known for having tough skin. They get rejected all the time. They get told no, but then they get to move on to the next one, right? They get to move on to the next thing, as opposed to an account manager who's like in it up to their knees, and they still have to work with the customer because it's still a customer. Yeah. And so they get all, whatever amount of stuff they're dealing with and stresses and problems, they still have to go out there and fix it. So you're right. It's a very different type of grit. I can't just bounce off to the next thing. I actually have to go back, even if the customer's upset, even if they're unhappy, even if they're threatening to leave. In some cases, even after they've canceled, I still have to go back and spend time with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it also, that very fact puts additional pressure on account managers, right? Because every recommendation that you make, every additional product that you encourage your client to adopt, every renewal that you have them sign is another demonstration of their trust in you. So you better be giving them something that's good for them, because you can't do you can't do it halfway. You got to talk to them in 2 months. So if it's, if it wasn't a smart decision, a smart thing to put in front of the client, you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that. And new business AEs don't necessarily have to deal with that same pressure. So it's another way that grit is just different.
Tell us about customer elation.
Yeah. So it really is tied to that retention equals expansion piece. But I think this is the precursor to both of those things, right? So when I go to World at Work, or my AMs go to World at Work, or their leaders go to World at Work, or any conference where we are surrounded by our customers, we get hugs and we get, people that are like, oh my God, and they're running up and giving, very excited to see us. And that is what I expect my team to drive from the customers that they are responsible for. And the reason is not only for the monetary component behind retention or expansion, but it is a brand recognition and a reputation. You are risking the reputation of your organization every time you sit in front of a customer. Now you can put them in a better position or a worse position. So customer relation is, again, a critical part to really driving a successful brand in the market, to repeat customers, to referrals, to retention, and then to expansion. So it's sort of the cornerstone of everything that we do as account managers. And it's the way we can benefit our organization, the organization we work for Payscale, the most is by elating our customers so that everything that we do is viewed as positive in their eyes. That's what I mean by customer relation and why I think it's so critical.
So there are some people, and for example, Greg Danes, who came on this podcast, and he said, there's no data that shows that happy customers stay any longer than unhappy customers. The distinction, the difference between one who stays and one who leaves is, did they get any type of measurable value? So can we actually link back our service or solution to some kind of value or helping them to achieve their goals? And did we as account managers do a good enough job of defining what those are and then tracking them and then showing them back? How does customer elation fit into that picture? So presumably we're not just going after, hugs and pats on the back because, we think it's fun. We're doing it because it's creating an emotional connection to the customer. But what about the brass tacks of showing the results?
Yeah. I think that goes back to the discovery that we talked about earlier. So if I truly understand, or any account manager at Payscale truly understands the goals of the customer, and we help them meet their goals or make their lives easier or their job better to do, or they can go to a board and present analytics that support, we've helped with retention, or we've helped with risk mitigation around pay equity, or we've helped with time to hire, or any of these measurable things that essentially make our clients look good, our users look good in front of the people that they care about in their career, and we help them meet their goals. That elation is sort of the result of us being able to deliver the things that Greg said. I think that that's absolutely right. But I'm not happy as a customer most often if I'm not getting what I signed up for from a tool or a service or a person or wherever I've made the investment. So I think elation is the result. We have to earn it, and we earn it by delivering on the promises we make at the point of original sale or at renewal or at whatever event the customer has given us the opportunity to be their partner in that particular, project or timeline, whatever it might be.
And to link this back then presumably to one of the first topics here, expansion is a service to them because they're getting more from us, because they're able to actually meet more of their goals or get closer to their overall goal. So the more that we understand them, the more that we elate them, the more that they're able to achieve, the more likely they are to expand, and retention therefore is well in there as kind of a foundational piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, customers that have been with us for a long time started using Payscale tools because way back, compensation software was really used to aggregate third-party survey software. That's why our customers used us. It's why third-party surveys. So that's why they used us. That's why they stayed. And over the course of time, compensation has become a strategic lever within businesses for recruitment. It's a requirement to have it documented and understood for compliance purposes, things that just weren't in place years ago. And so if I'm not, as an account manager, giving you what you need as those needs change in your area of business, which happens through expansion, it happens through retention, it happens through innovation that we, encourage folks to use and adopt, then I'm not doing my part, and I'm not elating you, and my service, my expansion as a service doesn't exist. But if I do that and I make, these moves along with your role, then I'm helping you. And that costs money sometimes. That's okay.
Yeah. No, the commercial negotiation then flows from there. So awesome. We've covered a ton of stuff here. Thanks for sharing all this. We're coming up toward the end of the year, and so just question I have for you is, what's coaching that you're giving to our listeners, to account managers around the world, on one meaningful thing that they can do between now and the end of the year to help set them up for success going forward?
I would be speaking to every client that renews in Q4 of 2026. That's my piece of advice. I think you should be a year out and beginning those discovery conversations now so that you have time to make an impact and drive results before they have to make their own decision next year. The flip side to that is if you're just now talking to your Q4 25 customers, you're behind significantly.
Okay, so you're saying go a full 15 months out or whatever, a long time out, and get in front of these conversations. And how does one even start that? So like what's your script for starting that conversation?
Yeah. So we subscribe to something at Payscale called the Drive methodology, which is this idea of getting out in front of your customers a year ahead of renewal when they're in the enterprise space, 9 months in mid-market. And the idea is you have a soft handoff between CSM and AM, and not handoff, maybe introduction is a better term, where CSM simply say, hey, your renewal's coming up in a year. We should probably start to have initial conversations around what that needs to look like to be successful for you. And it does two things. That's the talk track. It does two things. One, it helps us mitigate any risk and gives us time to correct that, whatever is at risk or why that risk exists. And the second thing is it gives us time to see if there is an opportunity for expansion, allow our customers to go through a proper budgeting cycle. We're not shoving anything, down people's throats. We are allowing things to happen in a way that develop trust and further kind of confidence in who we are as a partner. So I would recommend working with your other post-sale partners. And if you don't have them, just a soft launch into the conversation of, I want to make sure that your next renewal is as smooth as possible and you have everything you need from us. Can we have an initial conversation next week? And I think that's it. And that seems to work pretty well.
Dynamite. Love that advice. So that's a great challenge for our listeners to go out and get way ahead of your renewals. Make sure you're not getting hit with any surprises, and also make sure you're not surprising your customers with anything that might be coming up. So I super appreciate that. Amanda Edington, great to have you. Thanks so much for joining me here on Account Management Secrets.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you. Thanks for having me.